Alright, I've spoken to a lot of people recently and I was surprised by the amount of people that couldn't fix a puncture. So instead of a riding tutorial, this is going to be a maintenance tutorial. Now we've all done it, we've all got punctures. They're really annoying, especially when you're out in the middle of a ride. Wouldn't it be great if you could actually fix it yourself and carry on riding? So that's exactly what I'm going to teach you how to do. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is take the tube out of the tyre. Now there's two ways of doing this. You can take the wheel off the unicycle completely, or you can just take the tyre off the rim with the wheel still in the unicycle frame and fix the puncture that way. I find that's a lot quicker, it's a lot less hassle, you don't have to undo the bearing holders. So that's the method that I would use. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I've just got an inner tube which is punctured, and I'm just going to do it on my lap and not even go near a unicycle for the time being. Now, to be able to find the puncture in the first place, you're going to need to pump the tube up. You can normally get a good idea of where the puncture is. If it's a thorn, look inside the tyre and find out where the thorn is going through the tyre, but I find a lot of the time on a unicycle it's a pinch flat, so you can't do that. Now with this one it's fairly obvious because the hissing sound is very loud. In fact, I've just lost it, I don't know where that came from. In fact, there's two little holes there. Don't know if you can see those. One just there, and there's another one on that blue line as well. So that's what we're going to be repairing. Now if you can't find the puncture as easily as that, then you need to either get a bowl of water or put it in the sink or the bath, pump the tyre up, and even the tiniest hole will let air bubbles out. So you'll be able to find it even if it's in the minutest hole that you can't see with your bare eyes. Now you've found the hole in your tube, you're going to want to patch it. So you need to select a patch. Now I've come across two different types of patches. I've been riding bikes and unicycles for years and years and years, and I've come across two types. First type is these ones, which they come on a bit of foil and they've got cellophane over the top, and they've normally got orange or red feathered edges all around the edge, with a thicker rubber part in the middle. Now I really like these patches. For me, these always seem to work really well. The other type I've seen are these type. These are the same thickness all the way around. They don't have a feathered edge. They have a self-adhesive backing on that you peel off, and the idea is that you don't have to have any glue with these. You just apply glue to the tube. Right, so we've got our patches, we've got our hole in the tube. I don't know if you can see that from there. We've got one there and one there. Now I'm going to attempt to patch these both at the same time. I've selected a patch that will cover both of them easily. You need to select the right size patch. You get different size patches. There we go, there's a smaller one for a small round hole. And then you get, in this kit we've got a really big patch. That would be, I'm assuming, more for a tear than a hole. But this one will do for these two holes. That will cover them easily. The holes are there and there, so this will cover these two easily. So we get our glue, get a little tube of glue and a puncture repair kit. Every single repair kit comes with one of these. What you want to do is you want to make sure all the air is completely out of the tube. You don't want any air in the tube. If you do this with the tube slightly inflated, the patch will just tear off as soon as you pump the tube up again. So what you want to do is put a bit of glue on the area where your patch is going to go, and just spread it around with your finger. Make sure you've got an area much bigger than your patch. Now you don't want to lose your hole, so what I normally do is keep an eye on the hole, and then as soon as that glue starts to dry, just dab your finger where the hole is, so you've got a nice fingerprint where the hole is, because then you don't lose it and you know where you're going to be putting your patch. Now, even though these patches say they're self-adhesive, I never ever trust the adhesive that comes on them. So what I do is I peel the backing off the patch and I put a dab of glue on that as well. And same again, spread it around with your finger. Now this glue, you can't just stick it straight together. You have to wait for it to go tacky. So you want to leave that for a minute or two, and you'll just see it start to dry in the air. I don't know if you can see on the camera, you can just see that sort of going dry. But leave that for a minute or two, just so it starts going tacky. Right, this looks like it's about ready to stick together. So what you want to do, find where your holes are and put the patch directly over. You want the holes to be in the middle of the patch, underneath the middle of it, as best you can anyway. You're never going to get it perfect. And then using your nails, just press down on the patch, work it in, really sort of work it in, stick it down to that tube. Try and really work those feathered edges in. I'm not really sure what to call it, the top, back in the paper on top of this. What you want to do is you want to peel this off now, but don't peel it from the edges, because if you peel it from the edges, it will start to lift the patch from the edges, which you don't want. Now what I always do is, from the middle, try and tear it with something. Now do this fairly carefully, you don't want to do it with anything very sharp. I've just got this little bit of sort of metal out of the puncture repair kit. You want to just start a little tear in that paper. This is paper, some of them are plastic, which is a little bit more difficult. You can see I've just started off a little hole there, and you just want to peel off that backing from the centre of the patch towards the edges. And by doing it that way round, you don't peel the patch up at the edges. So you just want to go all the way around, make sure all of that paper, or plastic in some cases, comes off. And you still want to be fairly delicate with it at this stage, because the glue won't be dry properly yet. Right, that's most of that paper peeled off. As you can see, I couldn't get all of it off, it was a right pig, but that's most of it off, so that's all that matters. There's none around the edges of the patch, so that's fine. Now what I do now is we go back to our glue, and you might have accidentally lifted some of the edges while peeling the backing off. So what I normally do now is I go around the edge, just a tiny little dab, just smear it just around the very edges of the patch where it meets the tube, and just dab a bit of glue all the way around, and then with your finger just so it overlaps all the way around the edge, just so that any little gaps that might have lifted, it just seals. It's just an extra precaution really, but it's something that I found really helps. Give that 5 or 10 minutes or so, and then come back afterwards and do this next stage, which is chalk. You get these little cheese grater things with most puncture repair kits. Sometimes you get on the box, you'll get a bit of a rough thing on the box for doing this with, but I find these don't work very well. These little bits of metal are much more effective. And what you want to do is basically just grate your bit of chalk on the rough side of this, and you'll see it creates lots of chalk dust. Just make sure it goes on your patch, and where the wet glue is, it'll just prevent the tube from sticking to the tyre, because that could tear the patch off. There you go, and that's it. One puncture repair done. And there we have it, one repaired tube. Now I'd give this probably about 10 minutes before I try to pump it up, just to let that glue dry as much as it can. But if you've taken your tube out of your tyre, then once you put it back in and put the tyre back on, and if you've taken your wheel out of your unicycle, once you've put your wheel back in, that'll be fine to pump up then. If you've done it wrong, you'll know straight away, it'll blow off straight away. Now I'm not going to lie, like the first few times you do this, you might not work. It takes a bit of practice. There is a bit of I'm not going to say technique, but you have to get used to what you're doing. You'll learn little tips and tricks along the way as well. You'll learn from your mistakes, so hopefully it saves you a bit of money on a tube. This is my thick downhill tube, so I'm quite glad to have this back in service. It's taken me a long while to prepare this. So, yeah, I hope it's helped. If you've got any questions, just ask. I've got quite a few more to do, so enjoy.